Alright, welcome to my channel. This is the very first video, and I wanted to start this channel to get my thoughts out there, share my stories or any cool things I've learned, and talk to people who share my passions, pretty much. So right now I've been super obsessed with personal finances, so I'm gonna start off making videos on that topic. And I thought, what better to be a first video than talking about my debt journey and how I've already gotten enough money to pay off my debts, but I'm not sure. Well, we'll get to that later. So let's talk about this graph and how we ended up here. 18-year-old me, who's way off this chart, was going to university was the thing I had to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do as a career. So I ended up picking a major in civil engineering because I was like, I should do a STEM degree because I'm good at math, right? And the STEM degrees would pay well, and it made sense. What I did not expect was that I would have so much difficulty in courses, particularly in the upper division level. Things got more demanding. I didn't have the study habits to really keep up with all those difficult classes, and I was generally disinterested in the subject material, so that just made it hard for me to even be motivated to study. I just also was not very good at studying. I wasn't efficient at studying. And that culminated in me having trouble with a specific math class and deciding to completely change my major right before my fourth year to geology, because I determined that I wanted to be a park ranger, and geology was an applicable major that overlapped enough with the classes I already took that it would be possible for me to finish that degree in 5 years. But I'm one class away from finishing that degree. Unfortunately, I think it was too demanding. The schedule, like all the upper division classes being packed together, was really hard for me. I did enjoy geology more than civil engineering, but I really wish I had started as a geology major. And it's funny because that was a consideration for 18-year-old me, but I just dismissed it because I was like, I don't know what a geologist does for work, I really wish I had just sat down and thought about, what do I actually want to do? But we'll get there. we'll get there eventually. So I took 5 years and a 6th summer trying to get my geology degree because I thought I was good after the 5th summer, but my GPA fell too low for upper division geology specifically, so I ended up taking that 6th summer class, but it wasn't enough units for me to replace the class I did poorly in, so I need to take another class. So that 6th year, I took Spanish at a community college because I was like, this is the last thing I need to finish my degree. Didn't realize I missed the GPA requirement. I determined that I was going to enlist in the Navy, and that was going to take care of my debts, and I could also go back to school and work on getting a better GPA, because my GPA tanked pretty bad. After all that, you can see pretty well how much loans I accumulated. But it didn't, after all those years, all those summers, it could have been much worse than that. I had a good amount of grants, a small scholarship to help me out, and I was working a little part-time job those last few years, so that helped me to not accumulate too much debt. Alright, so let's talk about this graph finally. So at the beginning of this graph, I was holding a credit card balance because that 6th year was a real challenge financially, and I thought I could end my lease early and join the Navy, but that didn't work out. I ended up being in the DEP program much longer than expected. But, things don't always go according to plan, so you gotta improvise, and I really hated seeing the interest accumulated, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Credit cards have a utility in that sense, unexpected expenses, but then paying them off is a big pain. It was like 24% APR on that. I was holding a balance for like a year, but it was closer to 1,000, I think, most of the year on 2 different cards, like 500 on each card, something like that. I think I got too high on one card and moved on to the other one. Anyways, I was really hesitant to borrow too much money, so I ended up not having enough and having to rely on credit cards instead of taking out big loans is scary. But everything ultimately worked out. It was tough, but we got through it. So 24 to 25, I moved back to my parents' place. I was waiting in the DEP program to go to the Navy, and I was working a little minimum wage job, making just enough to pay off my credit cards, put some money towards my student loans, but put more money towards the household, and I did spend on myself, like my little hobbies. So I was just kind of chilling for that year, but I was annoyed. by how long I was in debt, but I didn't have a big worry about my debts at that time because I was like, decided to enlist as a Navy nuke for that nuke enlistment bonus that was going to solve my debt crisis. So the bonus was $40,000, but after taxes, that comes out to $31,200. And that gets dispersed in chunks. So a few months after I turned 25, I finally got to go to boot camp. And once you graduate boot camp, I got the first quarter of my bonus. That's the first sharp rise and slope you see there. And then a year after that, I got my second quarter of the bonus, and that's the next sharp slope. And then 6 months after that, when the graph starts to get spiky, that's when I got the final half of that bonus. And you might have noticed that I have a lot more data points on this graph after the last chunk of my bonus came in, and I was pretty well into the positive net worth range. Because at this point, I had a lot of money in my bank account just sitting there, and I really began to question, like, what do I do with money if I'm not trying to pay down a debt? Like, what do I do with this extra money? So, really not until the beginning of this year did I seriously look into investments and understanding how that works and formulating my priorities and what I want to put money towards and what are my future goals. How much do I need for retirement? What age am I going to retire? I don't know. So, one more thing in this graph, the little dip is from when I bought a car for the first time at the ripe age of 27 and a quarter. So, I don't like cars, but yeah, they depreciate real fast, but I need a car. Now, let's talk about the specifics on my student loans. So, as you can see here, these top 3 accounts are closed. Prioritize them because they have the highest APR. And the Sally Mae loan was never in forbearance. I was able to get the university loans and Perkins loans in forbearance when I was making so little money, but it was still accumulating interest for a while, and once I was in the Navy, I prioritized paying that off. And the rest of these loans are federal loans, so they've been in forbearance forever. And I've just organized them in the avalanche sort of snowball format. So the higher APR, and then if the same APR, the lower balance on top. So when you make extra payments towards these loans, it'll default to the avalanche method anyway, which is good because that would save you money on interest a little bit. My student loans totaled about almost $48,000. I have enough to pay these off. With the really low, well, it's not that low, but being under 4% makes me feel less urgency to pay those off. But I'd have to have a really good reason. Like, I'd need to be putting that money somewhere where it's going to grow significantly more than 4% a year, you know? Which is possible. So, yeah, specifically what I'm thinking of is putting money into my Roth IRA, preferentially to paying off debts, because I can still pay that off in a timely manner. But I can only put so much money a year to my Roth IRA. I really like that now. So I'm considering my approach. Well, we'll have to think about this a lot more. Anyways, I'm getting a little rambly, but I'd like to know if anyone bothered to watch this video, what you think. And I'll look forward to making a budgeting video soon. Bye.